Welcome to this briefing on extending real-time gross settlement and CHAPS settlement hours. It's a Bank of England consultation paper. It was released in May 2026 and responses need to be back during August 26. So here we are at the back end of June. There's never an excuse, is there, nothing's ever better than reading the whole consultation paper. But for those who perhaps CHAPS and RTGS isn't at the core of what they do, or they just want a quick briefing, this is from you. This is for you from Payments Unpacked. You know, now is neither the time nor the place for a history lesson on CHAPS. It's been around since 1984. Started off as a same-day transfer service. The ultimate idea was to get rid of the paper town clearing, so checks being exchanged. It morphed into new CHAPS. It morphed into real-time gross settlement. It's always been about low volume of transactions, but incredibly high value transactions, both in that as an item, but also in aggregate. And the whole purpose of where we are today is the successful implementation of RT2, the latest iteration of the RTGS CHAPS foundation or engine. Not only is it important for systemically important payments to be processed every day, but it is the bedrock or the ground zero of the new world order for real-time gross settlement. So if you've not read the consultation paperback to back yet, here's a quick resume, a précis of what's going on. But we have to start with an announcement the Bank of England made in February 2026, and this was about the first step towards a consultation paper. This was a slam dunk. It was done and it's been implemented. It's an earlier start of day for CHAPS. And as you can see from the screen, CHAPS will move from 0600 in the morning to 0130 in the morning from September 2027. It will give an opportunity for participants to submit payments earlier during that newly created morning window. As I say, it starts at 0130 and 0600 hours. It remains Monday to Friday, but it in effect gives us a 16.5 by 5 settlement day in same day good money at our central bank here in the UK. So that's sort of a given. It will happen from September. According to the bank, it will allow some institutions to settle their sterling obligations earlier. It has the opportunity to enhance liquidity management and improve operational resilience. And importantly, with the position of UK and sterling in the global money markets, that early start in CHAPS will allow better synchronization of UK settlement cycles with global financial markets. So when the bank announced this earlier start of day to 1:30 in the morning, the Bank of England announced that there were no immediate plans to lengthen the evening contingency window, but the bank did say work was continuing on proposals covering bank holiday settlement and this broader transition towards near 24/7 settlement capability. And at the time in February, they said we're going to launch a consultation paper about this next phase of reform in RTGS CHAPS. Expect it in spring, and very duly on the 18th of May, it appeared on the bank's website. And that's the purpose of today's briefing. It's around those extended hours for CHAPS and RTGS settlement. Again, it's consultation only at the moment. Responses by August, and then we'll see the bank opine past that point. But let's think about why innovation is important generally within payments, but particularly in the central bank money exchange with RTGS and CHAPS here in the UK. We're seeing massive innovation in the payments landscape. Customer expectations are changing. And when I mean customer, both, yes, at the retail level, but from a CHAPS point of view, those customers predominantly will be financial institutions and corporates. And that technological change advancing and accelerating is driving out new business models. Digital communication has become instantaneous. We expect our financial transactions to be equally fast. We expect them to be resilient, and we expect them to be seamlessly available. And this is the bedrock of exchange of money, good money at the Bank of England, starting to move towards an always-on service. The Bank of England decided that actually this extension of operating hours and settlement days isn't just about change. It's not something they just need to manage with the direct participants to get right. They believe as a central bank, it's an opportunity for them to lead the development of payments here in the United Kingdom and influence it globally. Certainly something we're seeing in terms of the new retail payment infrastructure work that's going on. because the bank are ever more committed to delivering future-ready infrastructure services. And as I said a moment ago, this real-time growth settlement CHAPS system that's just been launched is a foundation layer. And the idea is that foundation layer enables innovation and it allows private sector innovation to flourish, particularly. So enabling innovation matters, according to the Bank of England, to support new business models, to improve outcomes across the financial system and the wider economy, and of course, drive UK competitiveness. Always good to have a vision. The Bank of England's consultation repeats its vision for payments and for money. I'm not going to read this slide out. You can read it just as well as I can read it. But the whole premise of this, looking at the settlement day and the settlement window, is about a safe and resilient multi-money ecosystem. That as we start to think about both central bank money and commercial bank money being enhanced with tokenized deposits and stable coins, they want to make sure that for all that work, we will have singleness of money, that we'll have an anchor for that financial system. And that anchor is that central bank money at the old lady, in Threadneedle Street, at the Bank of England, will be that particular anchor. So this RT system we saw introduced in April 2025. It was the latest iteration of RTGS CHAPS. It was designed from the outset not only to replace the current infrastructure, but be a platform for innovation. It was to look at the range of organizations that can access the system, an extra evolution in the work about direct participant access. Now, CHAPS is pretty resilient. I think we'll all argue since 1984 it's done a pretty good job. But the premise of the build here was that it would become even more resilient than its predecessor. And crucially for this consultation, that it would be capable of operating on a near 24/7 basis. The word capable is interesting there and important there. It was designed for that. It won't go live, as we can see straight away. So what we're seeing in terms of this new CHAPS or RT2 system is to enable some work around synchronization. We'll come back to that another time. It will enable RT to connect to external ledgers, particularly those built on distributed ledger technology. It will allow a conditional settlement of funds in RTGS against assets on external ledgers. It will combine with existing omnibus accounts and extend settlement hours. And if you package all those together, these elements are important enablers for innovation in payments and digital assets. Another driver for this particular work is to improve cross-border payments. The bank have stated they're committed to supporting G20 agenda to improve cross-border payments. And that G20 focus is about extension and alignment of RTGS settlement hours to reduce friction, lower costs across different markets, and thinking about how you address those differences in RTGS settlement hours across different jurisdictions, processing into different timeframes and introducing the potential for delay, how it might address liquidity costs and how it might address settlement risk. Of course, the cross-border payments market is established to be or estimated to be 194 trillion US dollars. That was in 2024. That's forecast to grow substantially by 2032 to 320 trillion. So as well we think about RTGS and CHAPS in the context of our domestic payment requirements, another driver is looking at improving cross-border payments. So as part of improving cross-border payments, the bank are looking at settlement hours. They're thinking about this extending and aligning RGS settlement hours to deal with the overlap between systems, thinking about how the opening hours of RTGS here in the UK sit in the global settlement window. As I mentioned before, supporting faster, cheaper and more predictable cross-border payments. And the idea is that longer hours support innovation on cross-border settlement models, looking at coordinating payment versus payment arrangements. There is a real direction of travel here that the Bank of England bring out in their consultation when they look about comparisons. And the Bank of England bring out that many central bank peers have already extended their settlement hours. Others are planning to do so. And therefore, we can't stand still. We can't just sit at this very basic Monday to Friday traditional UK time zone opening hours. So the Bank of England see extending opening hours as a key enabler for aligning the UK with the global settlement mandate. And there they see it. The banks see an extension of settlement hours as integral to unlocking the vision of the multi-money ecosystem. They see it as integral to supporting innovation in the payments landscape, and they see it as integral to enhance cross-border payments. So, as part of this consultation on extended hours for RTGS and CHAPS settlement, the bank are looking for views on what the next step should be in settlement hours beyond the already agreed early morning extension that we will see introduced soon. The bank in their consultation have demonstrated a preferred pathway. They are very clear that they're open to different sequencing or open to different pathway views. But their starter for 10 is the introduction of a new settlement day. So, in addition to Monday to Friday, that only leaves Saturday and Sunday, but the idea is it probably will be a Saturday and certain bank holidays also to provide as settlement days. As you know, they're currently non-settlement days. Um, but they've said looking at that preferred pathway for an additional day, maybe a Sunday, and looking at bank holidays, that they would not do that before 2029. But by doing so, they believe that it will be a better global overlap and domestic DNS links and liquidity costs. A second stage will be to extend the settlement day to 22 hours per day on that 6-day week. But again, the bank have said, whilst that's an aspiration and something they want to go to, it would not be before 2031. And in addition to that pathway of 2 steps, they're thinking about a third step. They're thinking about a potential end state of 22/7, 23.5/7, yet really close to an always on situation at some point in the future. And in addition to thinking about the market or the infrastructure being open to everybody, they're also thinking about extending the available hours for internal liquidity transfers over and above the 19/7 availability there presently is. So we're seeing the idea of innovation that those extended settlement hours would give us an always-on solution. The new settlement models require access to central bank's money over and above the current 600 to 1,800 hours. And if we think about those types of new settlement models, we're thinking about the requirements that will be for things like stablecoins and conditional settlement arrangements in wholesale markets. Another driver, as I've mentioned, is the extension of settlement hours to enhance cross-border payments, greater overlap between RTGS, the expanding a global settlement window would support faster, cheaper, more secure border payments and reduce settlement and liquidity frictions. If you think about where the UK is, both as a currency, but also in terms of its geographic position and its time zone, what a great opportunity to think about our end of day and beginning of day in terms of the spread we can get across different markets across the globe. The bank, as I mentioned, have done some peer comparisons. We can see from the Bank of England that there are still some banks in that more traditional settlement hours that we are. Traditional is thought about being less than 13 hours a day. So Denmark, Japan, Norway, Sweden, and UK. Some have entered into a weekday settlement hours extension. Australia, Canada, EU, US, and UK, as I've mentioned, from September 27. They're thinking about weekend settlement. US are moving to 22/6, and there are some countries that have moved to full 24/7 settlement. Retail for Sweden and Australia, and everything for India, New Zealand, and Switzerland. And that's the context the Bank of England are thinking about the provision of settlement hours here in the UK, and that's what's driving this particular consultation. Additionally, longer operating hours will help the opportunity for more frequent net settlement cycles. Probably not for banks, but maybe faster payments, and certainly for the new retail payment infrastructure. They have the opportunity of reducing settlement risk, allow the opportunity for liquidity to be used more efficiently, and thinking about reducing and lowering pre-funding and liquidity costs. All welcome messages to those participants that are having to input into net settlement cycles, are exposed to settlement risk, and have to think about the liquidity costs. And again, it's not easy to do these things. It's often harder than we think. The consultation talks about some areas that we might want to think about. The concept of a business day. What is it going forward? And when is value? When I started in payments, everything was driven by the value date. Is it today, Tom, next, or in the future? So what is a business day in the future? What is a value date? How long do you need for cutover between end of day and start of the next day? We have to think about value day considerations. Currently, you might think about rolling a Friday value to if you miss Friday value, getting a Monday value. But do they go to a Saturday? Do they go to a Sunday? How do you think about value day considerations? Have to think about liquidity provisions. Will the structure require Bank of England to be available over the weekend? We have to think about our tolerance for downtime. How are we going to manage change management, both at the Bank of England and the participant community, when we get either extended hours or to a closer to a 24/7? And we have to think about participant availability. We've seen that the start of day for CHAPS is going to be optional. But when we're starting to move to a longer day or a weekend opening, should that be optional as well? Or should it be incumbent upon a direct participant to be open to send, open to receive for every moment that the system is open? And of course, what does that look like on a really practical level? Alert versus respond, full-time support, different parts of the day, weekend, what should a big participant do versus a small participant do? Real key considerations that the consultation tries to explore. There are some non-financial risks we need to think through, things like operational risk and resilience, impact on change management, staffing and support from a financial point of view, liquidity and settlement risk, and financial stability risk. You find the consultation doesn't major too much on these because at the end of the day, these are housekeeping, these are hygiene risks that we have to think about when we're doing anything with payments. And this particular change in RTGS CHAPS is no different. So the bank are taking this on a step by step. They're seeking views on what the next step should be. That's over and above moving start of day in CHAPS from 1 to 1:30 in the morning. And as I've said, it could be sequenced, it could be together, but we are introducing a weekend, or the proposal to introduce a weekend settlement day, probably a Sunday bank holiday settlement, giving us a 16.5-hour settlement day, but not before 2029. Thinking about lengthening the settlement window on the normal days, Monday to Friday, but not before 2031. And that would, in effect, take us to a 22/6 operation for CHAPS. And past 2031, could we go even further? Because longer we could go to longer settlement days every day with slightly longer daily downtime, or we could go to near continuous settlement with a short daily downtime. And that's really the end game we're thinking of. Do we want this to be a 22? Are we happy with where it's going to get to? Or do we want it to be a 22/7 system, or indeed a 23.5/7 system, supporting always on payments? As I said, the Bank of England have published this consultation on their website, bankofengland.co.uk, and it closes on August the 10th, 2026. Well, if this was interesting to you and payments are your bag, you should be subscribing if you're not already to payments-unpack.com. And if new retail payment infrastructure, or the work to think about the new design of what the retail payments infrastructure should look like in the UK, I'd absolutely suggest that you sign up to newrpi.uk. And that would be that's a dedicated channel to find out what's happening in our retail payments infrastructure in this post-new payments architecture world. Thank you for listening to this briefing. There'll be more to come. And of course, please subscribe and share.